Time is 7 p.m. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Mayor and Town Council for Tuesday, April 22nd. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So a roll call, Susan?
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Here.
Counselor Nagel.
Here.
Counselor Page.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rada.
Here.
Counselor Tiniakos.
Here.
Mayor Tristan.
Here. All right. We have a quorum. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, approval of agenda. Was there any changes that anyone saw they need to make? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Deputy Mayor Rada, seconded by Councilor Mankey. Any discussion on approving agenda? Seeing none, all is in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. We have no presentations tonight. Feels like that's the first time for a while we have a presentation, but don't worry, we'll be back on our regular presentation schedule soon. Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, I forgot about that. Absolutely. Before we move on, and I meant to do this before, Newington experienced a terrible, terrible tragedy over the weekend. We lost a family in a car accident, and we wanted to take some time to sort of recognize that. So I'd like to do this when everyone's standing, but if we could all stand briefly for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right. Moving along, next on our agenda is public participation. We will open the floor up for public participation. If you'd like to speak, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function, and we will alternate between in the room and over Zoom.
Good evening, everybody. Happy belated Easter. I just want, I'll have
Name and
to,
address.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I forgot. Man,
You know,
man.
we know you are. Bud.
Jesus, man. Bill McCarthy, 206 Churchill Drive.
Thank you.
Just wanted to thank the council, town manager, and all department heads for working so diligently on preparing this year's budget, and I guess that's it. Good job. Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Very
you.
much. I appreciate it. Good, how are you?
Hello.
My name's Patrick Hart. I live at 25 Moreland, just across the park where they put up the soccer field is. And we've had some issues that kind of generate around safety. There's a couple of them. First of which, that dirt parking lot over there, it doesn't have a street light that actually gets light into the parking lot. And we just, as of 2 weeks ago, I think, had another dumping of garbage and stuff. Someone just emptied out a whole truckload.
Oh,
And there's been multiple times where my wife and I, who live directly across the street from it, and my neighbor Tony, have seen people, doing drugs or having sex in their cars and various things like that. And the ambulance does sit there a lot of times, but unfortunately, whenever they're gone, people just see, an empty parking lot that's dark that they can do whatever they want in.
mhm.
So we were hoping that at some point we could get some sort of floodlight or something like that put in. I had called the town last summer and they put in one of those little solar lights that people mount to the side of their house that produces
yeah.
basically no light at all. And that didn't really seem to work. The second item regarding that same area is when there are soccer games and other activities in that park and people park on both sides of the street. we haven't actually been able to get out of our house a few times, and same thing with Tony, and even making the turn. So we're hoping that somebody would be able to put maybe no parking signs on the inside of that curve, maybe from like our driveway to the corner, which is probably 50 feet or so, and then the same going up across. Just because we've also seen a couple people come along and almost get hit by cars. It's just kids playing soccer. And secondly, you can let me know if this is a different avenue or way to pursue it, but one of our neighbors at the other end of the street has a bush that's basically right on the street. So you have to pull out in order to look to your left down towards the Polish American Club. And I think almost everyone has mentioned that they've almost got hit by a car here and there. And he did start taking away his bush, but it's almost like he took it away so he could see pulling into the street, which is the opposite of realistically what you want.
Right.
So just essentially, yeah, parking lot light, no parking signs are on the inside of the corner. And if it's possible to, have that neighbor remove the bush or trim it down to 2 feet high or something. But yeah, all right.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Thank
And
you.
was this the right avenue to like?
Absolutely.
Always.
No, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
you got us all here. You want, for sure.
How you doing? Mike Waugh, 57 Kitts Lane. It's about the bus again. This board shows how many buses have gone down our street since the April 8th meeting. 436 since April 8th. Again, it's about 950 buses a month cutting through our neighborhood. I moved to Newington about 33 years ago. I left the city for a reason. It wasn't for DOT and CT Transit to bring city life to me. I hope you guys can do something about this. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Hold up, sir.
Good evening. Neil Ryan, 237 Brockett Street, still Art and Soul, Newington. I want to give my support in favor of the proposed new fiscal year budget. I want to thank this town council for their outstanding work in putting this budget together. You provide the Board of Education with the money necessary to manage an excellent public school system. And you also managed to keep the mill rate under 40%, which is tremendous. Personally, I don't think a town, rephrase that. Personally, I think Newington's public school system is the town's most valuable natural resource. I don't think a town can spend enough money on its public schools. A good public school system is a draw for the town. It's worth its weight in gold. It can keep young families in town and could draw young families from out of town to move to Newington. Now, will this budget result in my property tax increasing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But if my property tax increase slightly, I have no problem with that. I look at that as money well spent, and it's an investment in our town. Thank you for your time. The end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else in the room or over Zoom that would like to speak in public participation? All right. Seeing none, we didn't get any email correspondence, I don't think, right? No, I didn't get any.
I checked last night.
Yeah, same.
It's 9 o'clock, I think.
Very good. All right. So we will move on to remarks by counselors on public participation. I'll actually jump in right away on Mr. Watt's comments. we're in discussions with the DOT. Supposedly, they're having a meeting at some point in the month to review the route, and then we'll see where we go from there. Counselor Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the update. I wanted to speak to Mr. Hart's comments, having lived very close to that parking lot for a long time. I agree, it's very unsafe. The things that you see in that parking lot are very concerning. So I would certainly be glad, as I think we all would, to buttress those comments and, you know, certainly defer you to the town manager to talk a little bit more about what could be done in that area. So thank you for coming out, and never hesitate to do so in the future. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Counselor Draco.
Yes, I was going to, very similar to Councilor Ford. Mr. Hart, thank you very, very much. There, not only that parking lot, but I think all of our town parks, unfortunately, you get, there's vandalism, there's questionable behavior. I've had some parents even tell me that they're afraid sometimes to take their children for a walk, you know, in the evening or dusk, whatever. And, you know, we've been told in the past that property values increase if you live next to a park. And that's true if you live next to like Stanley Quarter Park or Central Park in New York or whatever. But if you live next to a park where questionable behaviors become the norm, I don't think it does much for people's property values. So I saw our town manager hand you his business card, and I hope you give him a call. And this is something we really need to start addressing because it's not getting better.
Yeah, I'll touch base with you tomorrow, but one thing I just forgot to add was, you know, this area is under video surveillance signs, whether there's a camera there or not, making sure to be.
It's a good suggestion, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Mankey.
Just a general comment. I just thank the mayor for the moment of silence for the four people who lost their lives Saturday in the tragic car accident. I know for us, budget season is we're all hepped up on budget season, and we're all hepped up, but I think the events of Saturday put this all in focus. There's a lot worse things than arguing about budgets.
Oh, yes.
That can happen to us, and I think that's sometimes we have to just to take a step back and realize that after tonight, we may disagree with the budget, we may argue about budget, we may argue about how we spend the money, but life goes on. But for those four people and their families and friends, life is never the same. And so I appreciate your moment of silence. So we recognize that this tragedy goes on. For us, it was it happened, and it has ramifications, but those ripples will be felt for years and years and years for those families and friends.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Page.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to thank residents for coming up and speaking about your concerns about our quality of life and our safety in town, and how whether it's buses or the improper dumping and other activities nearby. Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention, and we will follow up on both of those issues and see what can be done. We thank you. And also just, all of our hearts go out and hurt deeply for the family and friends who have suffered that tragic loss. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Deputy Mayor Rada.
Yes, I just want to echo what Councilor Page and Councilor Mankey said in terms of the tragic loss this Saturday. Keeping in mind the victims of the crash and their families and friends, but I also want us to keep in mind, excuse me, and remember the first responders that, excuse me, that were on the scene and stayed on the scene for the entire length of time that it took for initial work to be done. So please keep them in your thoughts.
Amen.
As well. And once again, thank you folks for coming out, and don't ever hesitate to reach out to any of us in any way, shape, or form. We do respond, and we do appreciate you all being here. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other remarks from councilors? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to consideration of old business. First on the agenda is adoption of operating budget for fiscal year 25-26. At this point in time, we will take a brief recess and go with our respective caucuses and discuss a few more changes that need to be made to the budget, and we'll come back and we'll finish her all up. So right now, we are in recess, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. We are back from recess. Time is 7:34 PM. All righty. So moving into our budget discussion that we have been having now for the last 6 weeks. We are at the end of our process now. Last Wednesday, when we met for a special meeting, we indicated that we would have some additional reductions to the budget requests related to the Board of Education. And we will start there. Counselor Page?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start with number 4, item number 4, account number 11100, 8501, reduction to school bus replacement program, $1 million.
Motion by Counselor Page, seconded by Counselor Plord. Any discussion from council on this? I will tee it up. The reasoning on this was we felt that the bus replacement program that was proposed was a little premature, and we didn't feel like it was something that we should commit to long-term at this point in time. Counselor Mackey?
Well, I certainly can, I guess, support this. We were told at the budget presentation by the Board of Ed that these buses were mandatory. They needed them. They needed a cycle to get these buses, otherwise we would have this big cliff of inoperable buses. I just wondering what changed between the Board of Ed's request back in, I think, February, early, I think the first Wednesday, February, and now that they had to have these buses in February, and now all of a sudden now they don't need these buses. Is what's changed in you must have had some discussion with the Board of Ed, I assume, to know what happened. I've had no discussion with them about their big difference. So what's the change in their philosophy?
Certainly, I think we had this, I proposed to them that their plan that they proposed was not really feasible or sufficient for the town. And we asked what were their immediate needs in terms of what do you actually need for buses? And the number they sent back was about 2 or 3 buses. So we felt that we could cut the $1 million and they could still satisfy some of their needs for buses. Immediate needs.
And just so those discussions were with the Board of Ed as a whole, or with leadership of the Board of Ed?
Leadership of the Board of Ed.
Okay. Because I've heard nothing from my caucus of that part of the leadership. I assume somebody from my caucus would be part of the leadership, so I would assume.
I don't know, you might want to take that up with Board of Ed leadership and see what they have to say about that.
I will. Thank you.
Counselor Page?
Thanks, Mayor. I would just say, and I don't need to remind you of this, but you're acting like you don't know this, Counselor Mackey, that anyone can reach out to the superintendent or the Board of Ed.
True, but I would expect I would have some backup of why they said that was okay to do that. Other than
Okay.
Any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, we had a motion by Counselor Page, it was seconded by Counselor Plord. Can we please have a roll call vote, Susan?
Counselor Draco,
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Counselor Manky,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Counselor Page,
Yes.
Counselor Ford.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rada,
Yes.
Counselor Timiyaku.
Yes.
Mayor Trista.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Counselor Page?
Item number 3, account number 140008601, reduction to the Board of Education, $650,000.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Page, seconded by Counselor Plord. Any discussion? Again, I'll tee this. This came up with discussions through discussions with the Board of Education leadership and our own review of their budget book that they presented to us. I mean, that's mostly where this number came from, is where we identified areas that we felt could be cut from the budget that wouldn't impact staff levels. That was the big thing for us. So I think, this was a number that, again, we ran by the superintendent as well as Board of Ed leadership to ensure that this wouldn't affect staffing and there wouldn't be any layoffs of teachers or administrators. And we were told this number is sufficient to cut from their budget without having any layoffs. Counselor Mankey?
I guess I would compliment you on going through the book. I know you spent time going through the book and you have a better understanding of that book than I do, because the book makes my head. And I compliment you on going through the book and your efforts to do that. And I assume you have a guarantee that there will be no layoffs based on this number, and that you have, I assume that in some kind of from some higher authority than
Yes, superintendent.
than God. So there will be no layoffs. There will, we would, every time we would make a cut, we would get that in writing. I assume you have something in writing that would.
We spoke with them, yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion on this? All right, we had a motion by Counselor Page, and seconded by Counselor Floyd. Give us a roll call vote, Susan?
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Counselor Manky.
Yes.
Counselor Nagel.
Yes.
Counselor Page.
Yes.
Counselor Ford.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rada.
Yes.
Counselor
Yes.
Mayor Tristan.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. We have one other change that we forgot from last week that we wanted to do today, and you want to speak about that, Counselor Page?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Item 17, account 108338408, increase to Kellogg Eddie House, $1,500.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Page, was seconded by Counselor Gonzalez. The reason for the add back here is this line item is for maintenance and specifically of the outside area of Kellogg Eddie House, which we felt they needed a little bit more than $500 to make sure that that beautiful historic property continues to look beautiful and can stand the test of time. And any discussion from council on this? Counselor Nagel.
Yeah, my oops, I'm practicing with this so it doesn't squeak. My understanding is throughout the years that Parks and Rec took care of those grounds and that $500 was just a minor emergency kind of fund. Have things changed and now that is the sole amount that will be used for it? It seems questionable to me as to what those monies are going to be used for. I realize they're not thousands and thousands of dollars.
No, I think, to your point, Parks does do a great job at maintaining it. This is actually in their budget. So this is part of the Parks budget. So this would just go to add more for that so they don't have to pull from another area.
And it will be held to be specifically for those specific grounds.
Yes. That's what the line item.
And I assume that will be in writing as well.
Yeah, it's in the line item, correct? It's in the budget.
Okay.
Can I ask for clarification? Like, so what specifically would you direct me to ask Clay and Bill to do?
It's nothing. We're just increasing that $500 to $2,000.
So to the extent the requests are made that they, okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Yep. Any other discussion from councilors? Seeing none, we had a motion by Counselor Page, it was seconded by Counselor Gonzalez. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Counselor Pedrosa.
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Counselor Manky.
Yes.
Counselor Nagel.
Yes.
Counselor Page.
Yes.
Counselor Ford.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rada.
Yes.
Counselor Timiakis.
Yes.
Mayor Tristan.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. That is all that we have to propose. Counselor Mankey, do you have any,
Yeah, if I just can indulge. the
Absolutely,
council,
please.
just indulge me. We've got some cuts that are mute points now that because we couldn't make them last Wednesday because one of our counselors was celebrating. I would just go through. I don't want the public to think we've just been sitting around for the last.
Sure.
Had no cuts. I just would go over the cuts we had proposed to make, but our mute points at this point. If I can put my glasses on. We were going to propose, and it's a mute point at this point, we were going to propose a cut to the Board of Ed of $200,000. We were going to propose a cut to the bus replacement program of $137,000. We were going to propose a cut to the Candlewick Park of $50,000. We were going to propose a reduction to the sidewalk pavers and curbs of $15,000 and a proposal to local bridges, dams, inspection and maintenance of $10,000 and increasing the historical properties of $10,000. Seeing as most of those cuts are now mute points because of our earlier discussions, we are left with the discussion. We would propose a cut to Fund 111008501, reduction to Garfield Street yard bus parking of $300,000. Our rationale behind that is we would before we propose paving that parking lot, which I know the Board of Ed is anxious to have paved because it would prolong the length of their, supposedly prolong the length of their buses. I think it would be important that we have a frank and comprehensive discussion of the future of the buses for the town and that particular space before we actually go ahead and pave it, rather than just pave it and then have that discussion. So we would propose that we cut that out of the budget and then have that discussion. And then if we decide to keep the buses there or keep the buses, that we have that, then we put that back in the budget for next year.
Motion by Counselor Menke. Is there a second? Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Discussion from council. I'll start off. We considered this as well. This is some of the things we looked at as well as a potential reduction. Ultimately, we felt that maintaining the pavement was, or repaving the garage would help solve would help, prolong the life of the buses and was more of a pressing need than committing to a 10-year plan on purchasing dozens of new buses. So we kind of went the opposite direction on what you're thinking there. So I mean, in that point, I would be opposed to this. Counselor Tiniakis.
Yeah, I agree that we should probably start thinking about having like a comprehensive discussion about our buses as a whole. But the way I see it, maintaining what we have now is really important just to mitigate any kind of cost that might come to the future of these buses. And then down the road, if we end up not like using that space for buses, if we pave it, then the community can use it. And I think that's just something that, I think our town deserves, just to have like an accessible parking lot that doesn't have the risk of people falling or tripping or hurting themselves on our property. So I would vote against this as well. I just think that all around, just something that we should have probably done a long time ago.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you for bringing up that point about, any future use would likely require any paving to it too. So I feel like, anything you would have multiple uses in the future. Any other comments from councilors on this? We had a motion by Counselor Menke, it was seconded by Counselor Nagel. Can we please have a roll call vote, Susan?
Drago,
Yes.
Counselor Wallace,
No.
Counselor Menke,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Counselor Page,
No.
Counselor Ford,
No.
Deputy Mayor Rada,
No.
Lieutenant Yackos,
Nope.
Mayor Tristan.
No. All right, motion fails 3-6. 6-3, how do we want to read it? And that concludes our cuts. Janet, with the changes that we just made right now, can you please give us an idea of what the mill rate looks like?
The mill rate would be 39.98, that's a 0.31 mill increase, 0.8%.
Great, thank you. All right. So there's no more proposed changes. We will move into the adoption phase. We have some fun resolutions to read, and Counselor Page, I'll ask you to read the first one.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolved that the following general fund appropriations of the town of Newington are hereby adopted for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, in accordance with section 805 of the charter of the town of Newington. Appropriations, town government operations, general government, $6,752,184. Public safety, $11,416,271. Public works, $6,286,322. Community planning and development, $711,486. Public health, $277,666. Community services, $1,249,341. Public library, $2,111,991. Parks and recreation, $2,149,800. Insurance miscellaneous, $14,029,536. And these numbers on the right, I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly, $44,984,597. Debt service, $3,108,000, excuse me. Yes, $3,108,500. Metropolitan District, 4,891,524. Capital improvements, 4,966,698. Equipment reserve, 1,458,112. Employee leave liability reserve fund, 8,000. Board of Education, 91,613,371. Total appropriations, 151,030,802. Be it further resolved that in accordance with section 805 of the Charter of the Town of Newington, the following general fund estimated revenues be raised to meet these appropriations. Estimated revenues, current taxes, 102,015,394. Prorated taxes, 1,006,267. Prior year taxes, 400,000. Interest and liens, 400,000. Motor vehicle tax, 10,335,718. Payments in lieu of taxes, 6,277,686. Assessments, 16,712. Licenses and permits, 683,500. Rentals, 106,000. Investment income, 800,000. Fines, 29,000. Charges for services, 752,600. Refunds and reimbursements, 22,000. Sale of town property, 5,300. State aid, 19,420,832. Federal aid, 0. Miscellaneous, 120,000. Transfers from other funds, 3,014,793. For a total of 145,405,802. General fund balance applied, 5,625,000. Total estimated revenues and applied fund balance, 151,030,802. Be it further resolved that the clerk is hereby instructed to place the accompanying general fund budget summary on the record of this meeting to illustrate the above appropriations and revenue estimates. Be it further resolved that the following budget is hereby adopted for the Public School Capital Improvement Projects Reserve Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 to June 30, 2026. Appropriations, district-wide HVAC, 160,000. District-wide security and safety, 60,000. Painting, 50,000. Carpenting, thank you. Carpeting, 50,000. District-wide playground renovations, 50,000. District-wide technology infrastructure, 750,000. District-wide blacktop paving, 50,000. District-wide vehicles, 30,000. Total appropriations, 1,200,000. Estimated revenue, general fund appropriations, 125,000. Interest earnings, 2,000. Tuition receipts, 1 million. School rental receipts, 73,000. Total estimated revenues and applied fund balance, 1,200,000. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Then we go to the, oh, okay. Very good. Thank you.
I will second that.
So we don't do we second those ones? You still vote.
You voted, and this is the operating.
Yeah.
And then you'll vote on the next one, which is the long range capital improvement, and then you'll do the, which you did part of this. There are 3 resolutions here.
Yeah,
So that was the first,
okay. We only vote on them one.
one at a time.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Counselor Page,
Seconded.
seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada. Any discussion on this first resolution? Counselor Mackey?
So I'm all set, all good with it, except for the part we get to the 5,625,000 out of the savings or out of our general fund to pay for current expenses. I spoke on this last week. We had this discussion about weather and whether it's raining or whether it's thundering or whether it's lightning. This is the biggest raid on the general fund in the last 15 years. It's in my opinion, it's a bad precedent. We're taking an extra $2.5 million out of the general fund to meet current expenses. What do we do next year? when maybe state aid gets cut, or maybe there's another crisis that comes up, or our interest income's down, or our investment income's down. Where does it stop? I like the idea of tax relief to the taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer, you're a taxpayer, we're all taxpayers. I get it. It's great. It's fantastic. But what do we do next year? In the last 2 years, we've taken $10.7 million out of our general fund. That's a lot of money. How do we replace that money? That leaves a hole. How does that money come back into the general fund? It looks good on paper, and we can all pat ourselves in the back when we're all done. We say, oh, great, we kept the taxes low, and that's fantastic. But I'm a financial, I guess, conservative, and I'm worried that if it may be just showering now, but what if it's really raining next year? What are we going to do? Can we afford to take another $5 million out of the general fund? $5.6 million out of the general fund? I don't think so. Not with the new library, fire trucks, fire department building, pools. What are we going to do then? I just think taking money out of the general fund to pay for our current expenses is a bad precedent, especially taking this much money out of the general. This is a lot of money to take out of the general fund. $5.6 million out of the general fund. $5.6 million out of the general fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Draco.
Okay, I'm not gonna be quite as articulate as Counselor Mankey, but I am gonna say that, I really was losing sleep over the past 2 days. I've been going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But I do think tonight, when I saw your additional cuts, overall, I think I'm in agreement with most of the budgets. I mean, and I'm very pleased by the reductions. And I'm very pleased that we kept the wants in check and focused on the needs. But I too have real serious concerns on how the mill rate was able to be reduced for the entire reduction by 5.6 million. I mean, I would have had no problem with, the initial 3 million, because historically we've done that every year. The general fund has been gone into, but usually to the tune of about $1 million to $3 million. And quite frankly, in the past, councils have been criticized by a few of the more financial savvy members of the public because they understood the importance of maintaining a healthy fund balance, general fund balance, to protect Newington against catastrophic revenue losses, major emergencies, economic downturns, natural disasters, whatever. So I don't have an issue with drawing down portions of the general fund. It's been done in the past, other towns do it, whatever. As long as it's kind of a responsible drawdown, but over relying on the drawdown from the general fund to provide short-term tax relief has risks. And I have to say what these risks are, before I can vote. We live in a very economic uncertain time right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody can predict it. It could be wonderful, but my glass half empty and filled with cyanide says otherwise. By depleting the general fund too much, and we're not depleting it, but by drawing it down too much, it's going to make us more vulnerable next year to changes in, federal and state aid. And we know it's coming. We know there's going to be less grant money. We know that less money is going to be coming from the feds and from the state to all municipalities, not just Newington. We know that. We should plan for that. As Councilor Mankey said, it's creating a budget gap. So will revenue sources next year or throughout this fiscal year increase enough to be able to fill that gap that we're really, withdrawing from the general fund now? Maybe some of the grants that we historically relied on, or want to apply for won't even be available next year. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. But that could lead to having to make service cuts next year, or quite frankly, having to more significantly increase the mill rate in future taxes. We don't know, but we do know fixed costs are going up, salaries and benefits going up. The overall prices are going up. Nothing's going down. It's very unstable. And being a fiscal conservative, you know, I tend to, you know, want to save and plan for the future. Another thing that I think is important is needing to ensure that our credit rating remains at a superior level. We will need to go out for bonding for some major projects. We know they're coming down. We know that there may be more new fire trucks. There may be well, the pool, the library, whatever. We know these are going to have to be bonded for. And if we don't maintain our, you know, our bond rating, we could be paying significantly more when we go out to bond. And I've read that bond rating agencies are advised, you know, each town is different, but they advise minimal, let's say 10 to 15% of the total in the general fund budget. And by withdrawing the 5 million, that brings us to around 16%. It's significantly reducing us with no guarantee of healthy re-input in the future. And also less funds is going to limit our ability to respond to unforeseen events and emergencies, including hurricanes and tornadoes and floods. We're seeing a lot more of that now. Facility breakdowns, natural disasters, recessions, and severe economic downturns. And even if let's say some of the policies at the federal and state level are in the long run going to be successful, in the short run, it's going to hurt. And it's going to hurt not only our own pocketbooks, but it's going to hurt municipalities. So saying that, using general fund to, you know, to help with budget processing is beneficial, and it's not unusual. And people, you're not doing anything unusual, but what is disturbing is almost doubling the amount that we're drawing down from previous years. We, you know, voted against this last week or whatever, you know, because of the reasons that I had just stated. As much as I would like to remain optimistic, I remain very cautious, but I also realize that everyone in this room is hurting, every taxpayer is hurting. And keeping the mill rate down this year will help us in the immediate future, the short term, but I am very concerned about the long term, and I hope everything I said does not come to fruition. So I would very, very, very reluctantly support this budget, but I'm very nervous about what it could possibly do to us.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nagel.
I'm so happy that the two people spoke before me. And indeed, more eloquently than I could express my concerns, especially the 5.5 million. You've heard them explain. We've taken, no matter who's been in the majority, monies out of that fund with going to the town to see if that's a viable thing, given the amount that we have to have remaining in there to be safe in terms of emergencies do come up. But this is infinitely more. The statistics have been mentioned before. Our economy and what's going to happen in the future is in flux at this moment. No matter what political or whether conservative or liberal point of view we take at the moment, we're in a state of flux, and we need to be concerned about this town and where the money comes from to pay for things. I also personally have a concern about, I'm not going to go into all the details as to how the process of how this was done. Of course, personally, I have some quibbles with, if not more so, with having a meeting to do what would have been done tonight I assume last week, I was told it was going to be on a different day. And then in short notice, it was told it was going to be on a day that I'd specifically expressed was, for me personally, an important day that I could not excuse to come to a meeting of this importance, because I did so last year when it was an appointed date. So that and some other things I have questions about and concerns about, maybe not so much the what, but the how things were done and the specific reasons that have already been mentioned here. That's all I have to say at the moment.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Tiniakis.
Hey, so yeah, I mean, when we were going over the budget and doing all this, I didn't like the idea of taking a whole bunch out of not like a whole bunch, but more than what we normally would out of the general funds. So, you know, I looked back like historically at like what each budget from, I went back to like 2019. I thought that was like a good number. And for the most part, it you know, it kind of follows like a somewhat logical procession where for the they were taking out like 1.5 million in the late teens. 2020 comes, COVID happens, then we bump it up to 2.5 million. But then I noticed that, you know, when we get into 2022, 2023, I believe in 2023, they took out 3.6 million, but at that very same time, the council at that time, you had ARPA funding to really help offset a lot of that cost too. And that's just not a luxury that we have right now. So we're relying a lot on this federal money that came through. And now that we don't have it, you kind of have to like wean off of that dependence in a sense. So yeah, you know, we're taking out more than what we normally would at that time, but we're also adjusting to not having the same handicap that the town had in those past years. So my hope and my expectation is that moving forward, like come maybe next year, we're not gonna have to take nearly as much of this. I kind of feel like I'm in like the twilight zone a little bit, because I'm over here having confidence in our economy that hopefully we can ride the ship and get through this at a very quick pace at the, like, you know, the national level. So those are my thoughts on why this is okay. We're also, you know, we have to combat a few choices that were made in the past too. Tax abatements that were given out under development from, you know, 2000, like early 12 to the late 2019s and stuff like that in town. So we have to acknowledge that there are a whole bunch of factors that happened in the past that are kind of leading us up to this moment. And what we can do now is keep costs as low as we can for the taxpayer without putting the town in a certain burden, which I don't think we're doing with this. We're well above our 10% requirement, and our rating's not going to be affected by this. We've confirmed with our financial director. And now we can plan accordingly, saying, you know, over the next 5 to probably 9 years, we need to be cautious of how we take this money out and what we can do to replenish this, develop back into our community, get our grant list back up, and then hopefully this isn't going to be an issue moving forward.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add my voice to this conversation and add a bit to what Counselor Tiniakis said, and just thank Counselor Menke and Counselor Pedreco for the points that they make. They're very well taken. I can speak for my own part. And I can say, as Counselor Tiniakis did, that we didn't take this lightly. You know, when we were going through the process of reviewing the board budget and the town's budget, we found, and we made these cuts last week and this week, $1.7 million plus in savings. That, you know, that's, with respect, quite a bit more than the 812,000 presented on the other side. But we tried to be as responsible as we could to find those dollars without going to the general fund, because we recognize the implications that pulling any amount from the general fund can have on a budget. Ultimately, we were clear-eyed that, and this became clearer every day since January 20th, that the economy was very unstable, that people were more often and more often and more often sitting at their dining room tables trying to crunch their savings together to find something, dipping into their rainy day funds to weather the storm of a rainy day, that it would have been irresponsible for us to choose to not put up more from our own savings while expecting the taxpayers to cover that own burden. And so to give them stability, to give the taxpayers something that they can look forward to in very difficult times when there are very few indicators of financial health and well-being and 401ks are down and the rest of it, it was important for us to deliver that to the taxpayers. And I also want to say, as Councilor Tiniaka said, to the point that he made, and I think it's important for us to recognize, and we thought about this too, is the absence of ARPA funds, those federal dollars now in this budget. That is a significant driver of that cost. In 23-24, as Councilor Tiniaka said, there was 3.6 million from the general fund, but there was also $3 million in ARPA funding used to cover other expenses, very important expenses that needed to be paid for. But the money came from somewhere, and we don't have the luxury of using those funds anymore. And so, as Councilor Tiniaka said, and to Councilor Mankey's point about this setting a precedent, I think this sets a precedent that we need to wean ourselves off of federal dollars. And in order for that to happen, while maintaining taxes at an equitable level for our taxpayers without overburdening them, we need to put up in the short term, in a rainy day, in a tough spot, in an emergency moment, to avoid pain in the future. So I'm supportive of this budget, and I'm thankful for all of the folks, not just up here, but the countless staff members who worked really diligently to make this happen.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Mankey.
Just a couple quick comments, the budget is always the majority party's budget because the majority party, that's why the majority party. So I appreciate all your work that you did on the cuts, but you have the votes so that your cuts go through or cuts don't go through, no matter how many we make or how great they are. That's how budgets work, I guess. Just a couple quick points for the year 2024. You mentioned $3.6 million was taken out of the general fund, but you should also know that $556,000 was money that the Board of Ed gave us back as an MOU. So that really was just a pass through. We took that money back. So really the cut was probably a lot less than that.
The $3 million in ARPA?
The $3 million in ARPA was money we used for other things, but we used some money was
That's right.
to buy other, but things that weren't necessarily in the budget for other like parks. We did extra parks and stuff. We used it for other things. Yeah. And the same for 2023, there was $476,000 that we used. There was a Board of Ed that gave us back money that we then turned around and gave back to the Board of Ed. So it was a pass through. So even though it came out of the general treasury, it was money that came in and gave back out to them. So it made the number look a little bigger in 2023, but it's really money that passed through. So nowhere in the last 15 years did we take out $5.6 million with ARPA money.
Thank you, Councilor.
I see 6.6 in 23-24, but those are just
20
numbers on a piece of paper.
Which way, yeah?
23-24.
6.6. I don't see it coming out of the general fund.
Thank you, Councilor.
Not the finance director gave me a report. I'll see that out of the general fund.
Thank you. Councilor Page?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll keep this brief in the name of stability for our taxpayers in these very, very unstable times, whatever metaphor we want to use. I think we all agree they're extremely unstable and scary. I think as a body here and for the sake of our Newington residents, we can lend that stability. And I think that's what we're doing in this budget, and predictability for people's town budgets, people's personal budgets. And I think that's so critical that we do that and protect our taxpayers. So that's why I'm going to vote yes for this budget. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further comments from councilors? Councilor Drago.
And just a real quick one, and it's not necessarily to what, it's sort of what we were talking about. And it's not just particular to Newington, but I get very aggravated when other municipalities and even at the state level and the nonprofits and whatever are talking about, oh, they're struggling now because there's no more ARPA funds. In my humble opinion, the intent of the ARPA funds was meant to be used for things that were not going to be ongoing or sustainable. They were supposed to be like one-hit ponies, one-trick ponies, no hiring, no new programs, no nothing, because the funds were going to be cut. And perhaps we did it, perhaps, other municipalities or whatever, but I think everybody kind of misbudgeted and mishandled the intent of those funds. Just want to clear that up a little bit.
Thank you, Counselor. I appreciate the comments from everybody. As I said on Wednesday, this decision was made with the taxpayer in mind. And as a taxpayer myself, that's what I was thinking. I know, Councilor Mackey said, this is the process that we have, makes this a majority party sort of run show, and which is kind of too bad. I think, probably, as we know, we kind of came up with a lot of the same things. And I think, there's this, we get into the party stuff and there becomes these, we get these labels and you have to deal with all of that outside stuff. But I think it's important to remember that at the local level, we're, this isn't Democrat, Republican stuff necessarily. We're thinking about the town of Newington and the taxpayers. And while, some are more fiscally conservative than others, I think we all have the same desires and the same goals. So I appreciate everyone's input and all the comments tonight. We had a motion from Councilor Page. It was seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada. Can we please have a roll call vote, Susan?
Councilor Boudreaux?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Mackey?
Reluctantly, yes.
Councilor Nagel?
Yes.
Councilor Page?
Yes.
Councilor Ford?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rada?
Yes.
Councilor Tiniakos?
Yes.
Mayor Trista?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Can we move on to item B, adoption of long-range capital improvement plan, 2025-2026. Deputy Mayor Rada, would you please read that resolution?
Yes. Resolved that Newington Town Council hereby adopts the Town of Newington Long Range Capital Improvement Plan 2025-2026 through 2029-2030, a final copy of which will be on file in the town clerk's office. Note, this vote is binding only for the funds committed for fiscal year 2025-2026. The proposed funding for 2026-2027 through 2029-2030 is for planning purposes only and is subject to change through future budget deliberations.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Rada,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Plord. Any discussion on this from councilors? Councilor Nagel.
Just to excuse me while I turn this down, to reinforce what's been said, Deputy Mayor Rada, that indeed the town is responsible financially, specifically for just this coming year, and that subsequent years, it is a plan and direction to take. It is not a specific commitment. I'm just restating it to clarify that, and this is every year happened, and the public tends to forget that indeed this council is only financially approving of monies for this coming year. And the rest is a blueprint or a plan which is subject to change in the future.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or discussion from councilors? Seeing none. We had a motion by Deputy Mayor Rada and it was seconded by Councilor Plord. Can we please have a roll call vote on that one, Susan?
Yes, Councilor Boudreaux?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Mackey?
Yes.
Councilor Nagel?
Yes.
Councilor Page?
Yes.
Councilor Ford?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rada?
Yes.
Councilor Tiniakos?
Yes.
Mayor Trista?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item C, set mill rate for fiscal year 2025-2026. Councilor Plord, would you please read the resolution?
Certainly. Resolved, in accordance with section 805 of the Town Charter of the Town of Newington, the Town Council hereby fixes a tax rate of 39.98 mils for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, which shall be levied on taxable real and personal properties in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, section 417-418. There shall be a tax rate of 32.46 mils for motor vehicles property in the town of Newington listed on the October 1st, 2024 grand list, and said tax shall become due and payable in accordance with section 43-1 of the Newington Code of Ordinances. The town manager is hereby authorized to make out and sign the mill rate bill in accordance with this motion.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Plord, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada. Any discussion from counselors on this? Seeing none. Can we please have a roll call vote, Susan?
Councilor Pedroia?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rada?
Yes.
Councilor Piñatos?
Yes.
Mayor Tristan?
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for all of your hard work, Janet. You are off the hook.
She's already packing up.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Janet,
Never know what to take care. That's right. See you. Very good. All righty. Now that that's out of the way, we can move on to regular business. Moving on to item D, Permanent Municipal Building Committee Ordinance. This has been something we've talked about for a while, and we are ready to finally make some moves here. Counselor Plord, I'm gonna have you read the resolution, and as was pointed out to me, I'll remind counselors that once we introduce this, we are kind of under gag order. That's how we can talk about it until after the public hearing. So just a friendly reminder. Counselor Plord, would you please read the resolution?
Sure. The introduction is.
Yeah, the introduction and, yeah.
Introduction. I hereby introduce the town council's I hereby introduce for the town council's consideration the proposed ordinance amendment to Newington Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Article 7, Permanent Municipal, but Article 12, excuse me. Sorry, the Permanent Municipal Building Commission, a copy of which has been filed with the clerk of the council. Resolves that the Newington Town Council hereby schedules a public hearing on May 13th, 2025 at 6:30 PM to consider the proposed ordinance, Chapter 8, Article 12, Permanent Municipal Building Commission, a copy of which is attached to this resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Plord, seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada. I can't ask for discussion, we can't talk. Right?
Well, I mean, if Counselor Plord wants to speak a little bit about some of the changes.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
He's free to do so.
I'll just speak a little bit, we've talked about this quite a lot. I'll just speak to the amendments that are included here. That we worked with Lauren to prepare, so thank you, Lauren. A few of those, you'll see the first one is in powers and duties. I won't read them, but this was just something at the subcommittee level. We wanted to ensure that the council retain the authority to make this kind of determination. So that is the language that you have there. In membership, as you see there, that clarifies the minority party requirements spelled out in our Connecticut general statutes. We just lifted that at Councilor Mackey's request. In membership, we clarified the language there per our discussion at council. And in project initiation, same kind of thing. This was a recommendation from staff. Again, we wanted to retain council's authority. So that's the language that you have there. All four of those amendments have been reviewed by the town attorney and are good to be included moving forward.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions from council? Counselor Jacob?
I just have a real, actually,
Can't discuss it.
We can't discuss it.
Yeah, I think that the charter states that the person making the introduction can provide some context and introduction.
We
Oh,
can
this point-
discuss it on the 13th.
Yeah, on the
Okay.
13th,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
Then we can pick up part of it.
very good, very good.
The motion is to set the public hearing, the motion on.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, very good.
It's out here.
Yeah.
Should have gone on longer. It's just me. I'm the only one allowed.
Nah, you missed your chance.
And in fact, I'd like. to do
Let me read through the whole.
Yeah.
And then it happened, and then this happened. You had the floor.
Okay, very good. We had a motion by Councilor Plord. It was seconded by Deputy Mayor Rada. No discussion on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Motion carries unanimously. The public hearing is set for May 13th, 2025 at 6:30 PM. All right. Moving right along. Next up is appointment of town's agent of record. Councilor Finiakis, would you please read that resolution?
Resolved pursuant to town ordinance and recommendation of the Employee Insurance and Pension Benefits Committee, the Newington Town Council hereby appoints Lockton Benefit Group of Connecticut, Farmington CT, as agent of record of the town of Newington for the period covering July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2031. for purposes of soliciting, negotiating, placing, overseeing, and monitoring the town's employee medical, life, long-term disability, and dental insurance plans.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Tiniakis, seconded by Counselor Gonzalez. Any discussion on this? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? All right, motion carries unanimously. Last in old business is building permit fees. Counselor Gonzalez, would you please read the resolution?
Sure. Resolved that effective July 1st, 2025, building permit fees for the town of Newington shall be calculated as follows. For project costs of $3,000 or less, $50. For project costs of more than $3,000, $15 per 1,000 of project costs, provided that project costs shall be rounded up to the next highest increment of 1,000. For example, a project cost of $9,420 shall be treated as $10,000 in project cost for the purpose of calculating the building permit fee.
Second? Yep. Okay. Motion made by Counselor Gonzalez, seconded by Counselor Floyd. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries unanimously. That will conclude everything for old business. So we will move on to item 8, tax refunds. Counselor Draco, would you read that resolution?
Okay, sure.
Hey, she can read.
Resolved that property tax refunds in the amount of $2,805.86 are hereby approved in the individual amounts and for those named on the request for refund of an overpayment of taxes certified by the revenue collector, a list of which is attached to this resolution. Second.
Motion by Counselor Draco, seconded by Counselor Gonzalez. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to item 9, minutes of previous meetings. We have the April 8th public hearing minutes and the April 8th, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Were there any questions or concerns or any changes that need to be made?
Our scribe has none.
Okay, very good.
I raised my hand to say none as well.
Counselor, very good. I would entertain a motion to approve the April 8th, 2025 public hearing minutes and approve April 8th,
So moved.
2025 regular meeting.
Second.
All right, motion Counselor Mackey, seconded by Counselor Page. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to resignations and appointments. We have item A, vacancy in EMS committee. Counselor Mackey, would you read that resolution?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby recognizes the extraordinary services of the late Daniel Delandi to the town of Newington and acknowledges the vacancy of the town's Emergency Medical Services Committee as a result of his passing.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Mackey, seconded by Counselor Floyd. Any discussion on this? Counselor Mackey?
I think we just should make a mention that he has served on this committee for as long as I can remember, in one form or another. He was on, he was off, he was on. He's been a valuable member of the EMS committee, and I believe he was a member of the ambulance crew for a long time. I think I call him being in many events as an ambulance crew member. And just his certainly is going to be missed on the EMS committee and as a member of that organization.
Counselor Draco?
Yes, I didn't get to know Mr. Delandi that well, but as a liaison along with Counselor Tiniakis to the EMS committee, I've heard of his exploits and his contributions to that organization. And I know they're going to miss his work ethic and all the things that he did for them. And I certainly appreciate, as being a liaison to that committee, how much that they do and how much of a hole this is going to leave in their staffing.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Page.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Interlandi, I did not know personally, but like all of our first responders, he was a hero. I don't say that lightly. Doing the toughest job, one of the toughest jobs out there, in addition to all of our other first responders who go out and take risks daily to help us, support us, heal us, make us safe. And he'll be missed, I know, deeply. So God bless him and his family and all friends and his colleagues. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Tiniakis?
Yeah, I mean, I had just recently met him, but we shared a few phone calls, both of them well over an hour. In that short period of time, it was clear that he cared a lot about our emergency services as a whole, and not just EMS, but just the whole operating system across the board. He dedicated, I would want to say, most of his life to helping others, and I think that his passing it's sad, but I was honored just to get to talk to him a few times. I thought he was a really nice guy.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments from council? Seeing none. We had a motion by Counselor Menke, and a second by Counselor Ford. More discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Right, motion carries unanimously. All right, next we have some appointments. Counselor Page, would you please read that resolution?
Thank you, Mayor. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments.
May I point of order?
Okay.
Can I ask you table this? These are listed as three Democrats. One was supposed to be a Republican
Okay.
by the setting up. So unless there's obviously a typo here. Someone should be an R.
Yeah, I think there is a typo.
It's at least the second person.
I don't know what the typo is, so
Yeah.
rather than go ahead,
Yeah,
I'd rather get it corrected.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know that
No,
Bubba
let's
made
do it right.
clear, Bubba made clear that it was, they had two Ds and one R.
I
but-
believe, I know he
Yeah,
talked to
and
me
I-
about that. I'm not sure which is the R or which is the.
Yeah,
But to do it wrong, then have to
No,
change it later.
I mean, can we get
Silly.
clarification on that in here? Is that?
It's
no,
not.
in real time, we can't do that in real time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I didn't want to do it. I don't
No.
want to put it through and then have it go wrong and then have
No,
it.
let's do it right. You're 100% right. We would say the same thing.
All right, I'm comfortable leaving it until the next meeting so we can get that.
I just-
squared away.
I-
No, that's
I'd
fine.
rather do it
No, yeah, no,
correctly
that's fine.
than have to do it
Yeah, we
wrong.
want to do it right, so we don't have to redo it and do an amendment or whatever.
Can I just, this is I'm just checking this form that was submitted to see if that clarifies it, and it may
I don't
not.
think it
No,
does.
there wasn't a form. It
Oh,
was
there
just
wasn't a
that,
form.
it was
Okay.
just a memo
It was
from
Bubba's
from
memo.
Bubba.
Oh,
not listed
okay,
there.
there we
Okay.
go. That's a reason we have a form, I guess, right?
Is that right? There you go. I
go.
did form, we would be right, because we did
Right?
right.
Let's hear it from forms.
All right, so we will just sort of leave that.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Point of order.
No, I agree
Do it.
completely. We gotta do it right.
Do we have to vote on that or just leave it?
I think we just table it.
Table it, yeah.
If it's the consent of the council, I think we just.
Yep,
quick
that's
table
fine.
it.
Very good. We'll leave that to next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing it out.
All righty. With that, then we can move on to new business. Item A, under new business is master municipal agreement with DOT for rights of way. I think we talked a little bit about that, but can you just tee that up?
Yeah,
for us?
sure. Just to tee it up. So the town's 10-year master municipal agreement with DOT expired at the end of 2024. And basically, this master agreement stipulates that anytime the town is receiving state or federal dollars for a road or bridge project, that DOT, we basically delegate responsibility for handling those rights of way issues to the DOT right of way office. So as a simple example, we have 6 bridges on the National Bridge Inventory. So if we had to add, say, doing a repair of one of those bridges, we have to add an abutment, and that abutment is going to, land on some piece of ground that's owned by either a private party, a private property owner, or say the state or whatever entity. We would basically delegate to DOT to make sure that the appropriate right-of-way, easement, whatever agreement was in place. So this is kind of a win-win for the town, that we don't just one less administrative hassle for us to deal with, and DOT is kind of an expert on this. Chris, as a video, has reviewed it, has no issues. So I don't think this is one of those agreements that would only come into play once or twice over a 10-year cycle. So it's not a huge concern for council one way or another.
Sounds like a no-brainer.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yep, very good. So yeah, we'll do this at our next meeting. Very good. Moving on to item B, Fair Housing Month resolution. This is something we do annually, correct?
Evidently, yes.
Very good. Because yeah, May is Fair Housing.
I think it's technically April is Fair Housing Month.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't matter. If it waits till the May 13th meeting, it's not a problem.
Okay. Good. Council Floyd.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a quick question for you, Jonathan, about our housing rehabilitation loan program. If maybe for the next meeting, if you could just get us a sense of what we have available to disperse from that program, what available funds do we have? How often are they utilized? When were the last applications? Just to do a comprehensive overview, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilor Page?
Yeah, just an editorial comment, and certainly there'll be time to speak to this more fully in May, but the one line in this is federal fair housing laws require all individuals regardless of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin be given equal access to all housing related opportunities, including rental and home ownership opportunities, be allowed to make free choices regarding housing location. I find that funny, but not funny at all, given the prohibitively high cost of housing for so many residents, and the homelessness and the unofficial and sometimes unrecognized homelessness, including couch surfing and multiple families living in one residence because of that high cost. And it's one of the ugly sides of our system. And while our powers to influence that are limited on our Humboldt Town Council, I know we're all committed to continuing to look for creative ways to address these challenges for our Newington residents, and not just simply pass a resolution and feel good about that on its face. So I hope we'll continue to work hard together and work with all of our agencies, local and state, and federal, for what that's worth, to remedy some of this for folks in town. So thanks.
Thanks, Councilor. Any other discussion from council on this? All right. We'll move on to item C, 2024 to 2028 collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 671 for non-supervisory unit. Is this anything to tee up on this, or this is?
Yeah, so I wanted to introduce it this meeting so that it could be considered for approval by council at the next meeting. I guess this negotiation process has been going on for about a year now, and I finally got to the finish line. There's not a whole lot to digest in both of these CBAs. So there's technically two bargaining units, one supervisory that covers 7 employees, and one non-supervisory that covers 19 employees. And really it sort of mimics some of the key things of the provisions of the ASME contract that was just approved a couple months ago, the 3% wage increases for the next 4 years, for this year retroactive to the beginning of the year, a new floating holiday just as ASME got, and then gradual increase in the share of medical insurance premiums that is paid by the employee to 11.5. Similar progression as in the ASME contract, but slightly different. It's similar but not identical, but again, essentially gets to the same point. Otherwise, the real thing that makes this different is it formalizes the process around flex time. So right now, the folks who are, all of the folks that are covered in the Teamsters are exempt employees, FMLA exempt employees. And so there's just sort of a gentleman's agreement. Oh, if you work extravaganza for, 8 hours, on Tuesday and Wednesday, then you can take 8 hours, at some point later in the summer or whatever, but it's never been formalized. So basically these agreements would formalize that flex time. And so we've actually started to draft up like leave slips or flex time approval slips so that payroll could actually keep track of it. Other than that, the default language is really to the personnel manual as opposed to the AFSCME contract. So other than the flex time and obviously just formalizing those salary increases, the membership isn't going to see a massive shift in the type of benefits that they get. There are, however, note that the versions of the contracts, this is sort of superficial. It shouldn't, I don't think, impact sort of any discussion here tonight too much. There's a couple of things that we caught that are, need to be updated. Technically, the versions of the CBA that were in your packet were the last version that we at the staff level dealt with. There were some changes between the lawyers at the margins at the end, one of which is the grievance procedure. Right now it says, it's in Article 16 for the non-supervisors and Article 14 for the supervisors. It says that basically employees have 14 days to file a grievance. In what's in your packet, really, it should say 21 days. That would mimic the AFSCME language, so that's not something that we have any objection to. And then there's little things like the headers are in a couple of places are wrong, but
That's in step 2.
yeah, so step 2, yeah, grievance, a written grievance to town manager, it should say, within 7 days of receipt of the department head's response, but in no event later than 21, not 14 working days. After the event giving rise to the grievance, she'll submit the written grievance to his, her, their town manager and the union. So it's a superficial thing that just mimics the AFSCME language. So again, if council has no, and this was ratified by both bargaining units 2 Saturdays ago. So if council has no objections, we can move ahead for ratification on our end at the meeting on the 13th of May.
So these 2 separate bargaining units?
Correct.
How many bargaining units do we have?
So we have AFSCME, which covers something like 60 town employees and then maybe 100, let's say, school employees, Board of Ed employees. Now, obviously, the police collective bargaining agreement, which is maybe 53 uniformed officers plus 9 dispatchers, so 60 something, 62 employees. So now we have, yeah, four unions. Yeah.
Any other questions on this from council? I'm gonna lump these 2 items together, so you don't have to repeat all that again, Fred.
Yeah, okay.
It's just the same. All right, well, that'll conclude new business. We'll, keep reviewing it. If we have any further questions, we'll ask about it at the May 13th meeting. All right, so moving on to item 12, written oral communication to town manager. Any
Yeah,
updates for us?
a few things to bring up to speed on. I think Mayor Trister alluded to this at the beginning of the meeting, but there was a gasoline spill by the Citgo station on Berlin Turnpike very early this morning. I think it shut down traffic, maybe early rush hour, but certainly before I was awake. It was reported to DEEP. So the fire department heard about it, reported to DEEP. DEEP is the responding agency. So the town doesn't have at this point, any responsibility to follow up with the cleanup efforts. It's entirely in the state's hands, but nevertheless, obviously, a substantial amount of gasoline leaked out. Environmentally, it's concerning. We'll see how it goes, how the process unfolds with DEEP over the next couple of weeks.
Is that from a truck or from an underground tank?
No, it was from some sort of truck. I don't 100% know what happened, but it was a truck of some
Okay,
truck
so it wasn't
malfunction.
deep in the-
It wasn't deep in the ground. Yeah. Some sort of good news, and apologies to Mayor Trister, who we all know is a diehard, against my better judgment, a diehard Yankees fan. The Newington Police Department is currently at Fenway, or the color guard is currently at Fenway Park, where I
didn't approve of that.
I know. Where they did the
Didn't ask
color
me.
guard as part of the national anthem tonight. So I'm not sure who they played. At Fenway, yeah.
cool.
That's the
Yeah.
only place to see a ballgame. That's great.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, very
The best
cool.
place.
Yeah. As you may have seen, as you drive in on Garfield Street, if you're coming from Town Center towards Town Hall on Garfield Street, the first set of parking lots are now dug up. And Newington Electric is on site, will be for the next couple of days to install those UV charging stations. So we'll have 2 stations, 4 plugs total. Very cool when it's finished, hopefully by the end of this week. The Spark groundbreaking, as a reminder, is this Thursday, 9 o'clock. I think all of you RSVP'd, so it should be a nice turnout.
9 or 9:30?
I think 9. I have 9.
brother.
If I'm wrong, I'll send an email tomorrow morning to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure it's 9.
Thank you.
There's also on Thursday night at 6 o'clock, there's the fire department is doing its open house. And Mayor we have a proclamation teed up for you to deliver, and they're expecting you to say some words about the ISO 2 rating that the fire department got a couple weeks ago. I mentioned this, I think, in the last meeting, but on next Wednesday, April 30th at 6 p.m. DOT will be here for the public information meeting about the Cedar Street sidewalk project that will happen next year. And then a cute little plug for the town clerk is going to host a perfect pooch contest, cutest dog in town. I think they do this every year. I'm not sure, certainly my first go around. But anybody with needing a dog license and that thinks they have an especially cute dog is encouraged to send James, or the town clerk, a picture of said dog prior to Wednesday or by the end of this month, April 30th, to be included in this contest, and voting will start on May 1st. So fingers crossed.
You just email him?
I check the website, but yeah, but do you have an especially cute pooch, Mitch?
Of course, I have
Okay.
two.
Good, okay.
Which one are you gonna pick?
Yeah.
One wins, the other one doesn't. Now you're stuck.
Well, I beg to differ that mine may be cuter than yours.
I know,
so
right?
we'll-
We're getting fights tonight. All right.
It's a dog fight.
Whoa.
I beg to differ. I have two. They are the cutest.
Now we're
Now
down.
we're in trouble. Uh-oh.
I'm
Thank you.
just gonna send in a picture of Mitch.
Jim said the same thing.
Oh, I'll win.
I'm gonna rent one.
Thank you, guys. Very good. All right, moving along to council liaison committee reports. Any updates from councilors? Counselor Nagel.
Yes, I recently attended the library board meeting. So there's no echo here. I'll turn this down. At that meeting, Joe Salmon from the facilities director was asked to come to review the design for the library renovation project that was supposedly to go to referendum this fall, and gave some concrete information as to what would be helpful or not helpful or viable in reality for the town, because the town ultimately, if it's done, is responsible for maintenance of it. I won't give you the details of all of that. One thing that did come up at that meeting is that the chair of the library renovation building committee stated that the town had requested, I'm not quite certain how it was put, that the library not present their building for referendum. It personally surprised me because I'm on that committee and wasn't told anything about that, but that's another thing for another day. So at this point, I don't know whether it's going forth or not going forth. I got the impression that it wasn't, but it did come up at that meeting that was probably going to take place. They also talked about their 5K race that is May every year, and everything seems to be in good shape with their planning in terms of that. Friends of the Library is having a book sale, again, setting it up. It's not this weekend, it's next weekend, and going through their process, which is a lengthy one. And if there is a renovation to the library, their process will be a lot easier. We got to get that in. And they also talked about the remediation of the area where there was a problem where the stacks in the library books had to be removed because of a leak in the walls and whatever, and what they were doing with that. They're ongoing with that. It was approved that a concert that the library has in December, a group named Jukebox 4 will be presenting doo-wop music on December 5th, and might include some Christmas music with that as well. They have yet to find a presentation for a concert that may take place earlier in the fall. And that is all I have to say concerning the library. Does the town manager have any further information about what occurred about the library going to a referendum or not? 'Cause I was surprised by all of it.
I mean, I don't know anything specific. I can't comment on the specifics of what happened at the last library board of trustees meeting. I'll say that based on my conversations with folks on Lark and Lisa Maston, my understanding is that at the first meeting in June, they intend to come back and make their formal pitch to council to get approval to get it
Okay.
on a referendum. Now, so I don't, yeah, that's all I
It
know.
came as a complete surprise to me
Yeah.
as a member of the committee, and so since
I haven't-
public record, because they did it at a meeting that is
Yeah.
officially goes out to the public. I
Yeah,
thought I would ask you.
I'll follow up on that. I hadn't heard anything specifically new about that. Certainly I've had a lot of back and forth with them about just general issues about it and timing of a referendum, all those kinds of things, but I didn't, it's up to them to make a decision on that.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
for your input.
Thank you, Councilman Nagle. Any other updates from councilors? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 14, public participation again. If you're in the room and like to speak in public participation, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. We'll alternate between in the room and over Zoom. None? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Remarks by councilors. Any comments from council? Councilor Taniakis.
We did it. Just happy that we were able to do this. I know it's been months of doing this, but I just want to say that I'm happy with the end result. I think that as time goes on and the surrounding towns close to us come out with their budgets, I think that we can confidently say that we're probably going to be something to be desired compared to other towns and where they're at financially. So just happy that we were able to get this done, and now I could focus on getting married in 2 weeks.
Congratulations. Councilor Floyd.
Thanks, Mayor. Ditto, just want to say thank you to colleagues on both sides of the aisle for the hard work that went into this process. And I'm glad we came out of it, first of all, alive, but also unanimously, which is always good. And just a massive thank you again to all the staff that poured their heart and soul into this work far before it came to our desk. So, and far after too. So thank you for that. And I'll just do one shout out and take the liberties to shout out Councilor Bedrejko for now being honored as a Volunteer of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Which, as we all know, is extremely well deserved, and we'll look forward to supporting you at that event. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
A lot of hard work.
Any other comments from councilors? I'll be quick. I think, Councilor Mackey, you brought it up earlier, when we have, in the face of the tragedy that we suffered this weekend, it really does give you an opportunity to sort of take stock and sort of have perspective on what it is that we're doing. And, often, we're so hyper focused in our little bubble on this thing. Sometimes it's really hard to see outside of it and get beyond whatever little sticking point you're on in the moment. So I think, for me, it's been really important and good to step back and sort of look at, while we may have disagreed on certain elements of this budget, I think, it's, when you look at some of the things that are going on in surrounding communities and communities like Newington, we have it pretty good here, I think. And I think, while, again, we may disagree on different points, I think, ultimately we're all in agreement on what the outcomes want to look like and how we want to see the town move forward and for the best. So I think, when you're in agreement on that part of it, you can get there together. And that's what we've done tonight. And, I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of all of us for doing this. Moving on to informational items. Only thing I got is this Friday is the senior center's spring dance. I forget what it's called, but it's a fundraiser to help support the Concord Meal Program. I will be there. If you want to see what bad dancing looks like.
No, I will be there and I will show you what that dance is. Trust me,
Agree to disagree.
trust me.
Any other?
There will be a
information?
contest.
We're gonna have a dance off. No, we won't do that. Counselor
Yeah, I
Page?
just wanted to mention, I don't have all the details, but I saw online a GoFundMe, I think it is, for the family who we lost in town. So people do what you feel is appropriate. But it's out there, and if you did want to help them in any way, that's your decision. And I believe the wake is this Friday,
Friday.
I'm told, and that'll be at the Newington Memorial.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring our attention to that if people are inclined to go and support the family. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Rada, seconded by Counselor Gonzalez. That's why I'm
Wow.
sorry,
I
I'm
got
sorry, I'm
beat
sorry.
this time.
That's what I heard first. Any discussion on adjournment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? All right, we are adjourned, 8:55 PM. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us tonight.